Hey, and welcome to this episode of the Integration Podcast. So, in this one, I'm actually just going to interview myself. So, it's going to be a little different than what we normally would do in this podcast. But one of the things, the thing I want to cover in this podcast is Operational Process Intelligence, OPI from SAP, the product that enables you to figure out what's going on in your processes in your PI or ERP system. So yeah, it's a little different from what we normally do where I interview an expert, but in this one I think, well, maybe not. Maybe it will just be a good idea to share some of my project experiences regarding this so you can get an idea about what this tool is and why it would help. So let's see how this goes. I hope you like it. If you do, please put some comments or share the podcast. So OPI, I guess we start in a little different place, and this is about business activity monitoring. I think this is a term that has been coined a long time ago. I was using it in my bachelor projects at a business education, so I think this was 2005-06, where I was talking about business activity monitoring and how you could build it and monitor your businesses, because that was quite hot at the time. But I don't think that anyone was really using it and figure out where does this fit in. So I think it's first year and later time that the systems has been powerful enough to really power this and ensure that what we're doing really works. So SAP created after they got the HANA database, they were able to create this product on top of its OPI. I'm not sure when this was done, but I think it was quite a few years ago. And then they said, well, this is a part of a smarter process application where you got process orchestration, SAP PI, BPM, and then this OPI. And I think there was one more component about this, and it was also running on top of the HANA database. So I was involved in a project for the last 2 years where the OPI was a part of it, and it's based on this. I would like to share some of these experiences that we have and why we wanted to use it. So we had a lot of had some BPM process running that enabled and we wanted business to see what was really going on, what are the different steps that is being performed, what's happening, what's not happening, who's doing what, and what are the challenges that we see. So we started out doing this Operational Process Intelligence project. We created some BPMs, we got them up and running, and the next step was to use the OPI, extract the data, and be able to show the business how these processes were performing, what was going on, and stuff like that. Obviously there was some challenges in this, and I would like to share some of these challenges regarding that. But in the overall perspective, you're able to take a process from BPM, and you can also do it from other data sources if you use some of the extractor tools and send data into this product, so you're getting a lot more information about what's really happening. The main thing is you can set up phases in your project, so you can see how many of your processes in each phase and how long time does it take for them to finish. So a business user with a really simple glance can see, oh, we got these processes, there's some here that's critical, we need to look into those, assign them to some different people and deal with them that way. When we started the development, we had the processes up and running, and then there was an extractor from BPM that allowed you to just extract data directly. I think that the challenge I had there was I needed to assign myself or the user that are connected to, I needed to have that user have a BPM or a Solomon role for BPM extraction or something like that. Once I was able to do that, I was able to extract the full BPM process metadata and start developing my process on top of that. So, well, I guess before you get to that point, you need to download the HANA Studio for the right version release, and then you need to get the Operational Process Intelligence add-on and install that one on it. And I think that was a little challenging, figuring out what's the right version for this and how do we make this. So once I got it up and running and to share it with the project team, I created one Eclipse version where I had all the different tools in and would be able to share this with the other people in my team. Then, yeah, it was quite easy to see a lot of information about the process, what are the different steps we have, who did what in each of the different steps and the phases there. But we needed to get a step deeper because obviously it would be nice to see what are the name of the process, who controls this, what's the amount of value that we're trying to approve, what are some of the different indicators, cost centers that we wanted to use here. So for it also took a little while to figure out, well, in the BPM you needed to create a data source and submit data to that one for every time that you're doing some updates. And then in the OPI you could just click and add these as different attributes. So in our first process we reported to data sources in a lot of different locations, and in our BPM process we reported to the data source and then terminated. That had some unfortunate consequences at a later stage, so because you're specifying what's valid endpoint terminations of the BPM or an BPM process in the OPI. So it knows these are terminated correctly and these are terminated falsely, so there's not something we need to do regarding these. But you need to specify these endpoints and you need to specify what is not endpoint. So if you have a lot of reporting stages that is just ending to the same termination, it's a little challenging because it will not give you, you'll have to unselect them every time you're doing an update of the BPM model in the OPI. So that the way I found for other processes, what I was just creating one data source reporting, and then I'll just have a lot of different internal variables I'll set, and then I could so when I was going from my secondary step, I would just say, okay, now we're in this phase, so do a mapping to some data sources, and then in my OPI call, data source call, I'll just say this is what we have now, and then I'll have a termination of this processing part. That made it a lot easier to do these different steps and say, okay, now we're just terminating, we're close this reporting. So some KPIs is really easy to use, like how many of these processes did we have, how long time does it take for a process from this step to this step. But there's others that I would say would be really nice to have, like how many percentage of our processes has this state, instead of just saying, okay, we got 500 processes in this state. It would be nice to know, okay, that in the total month we were running 500 1,000 processes. There's 500 of these, so it would be nice to know. It's like, I don't know how many percent that would be. So once we ran into these things, like crap, we need to figure out a better way to do these. And talking with the SAP support, they were quite helpful. We found that the way to do this was to create a new HANA view where you did the calculations at top of these context, and based on that you could do the calculation, figure out, okay, now we got a new calculation, it's 5% or whatever it is, show that to the user, and then the user can drill down and see those processes in the list that makes sense. So I think it would have been really nice if that was just something you got out of the box and you can just say, hey, now we got this included and start using it. But obviously it needs to, well, you needed to figure this stuff around and figure out how to deal with this in a little easier way. But then once you got to this initial HANA development phase and learned, okay, you can do it in this way, it becomes a lot easier to create all the different processes afterwards. Because, well, we can get so far using the standard tool, and then from there on we can create HANA views that does a lot of extra calculation, and it's really powerful. But I started out with limited to no HANA experience, so I had to learn a lot about creating these different views and figure out why it was relevant to do this. And I became better at it, and it worked pretty smoothly. So yeah, the basis components are really easy to use, but after you get to that limitation, it takes a little while to figure out how to do all of these extra things. So we had to do synchronization between the different projects. So we wanted to share the same KPIs, like who was running these different processes, what was going on there. So the way we did that was we would actually just copy the calculation view object, open it in a text editor or the built-in XML editor, and then do search and replace these different attributes. And after that, we were able to activate the changes. And this works as long as we're just using standard tables. But if you want to use anything specific from that specific process, you obviously need to modify it. But that was a good way to synchronize between different components. Obviously not ideal, but I think it was pretty useful. Then, since this was first HANA experience, there was obviously a lot of experience figuring out how do we transport these things, what is required, who is the users, and what's valid transport targets. But though we learned that together with SAP support and our system partner, and I think we got some. It worked out fairly smooth, though it did take quite a long time. Then I guess we come to the last point in this, and this is the future of the OPI. I don't know really if there is a future, at least not for the on-premise version. So I think the one SAP Cloud Platform, OPI 1 was released. One Service Pack 13 was released 1.5 years ago, something like that. And there's not been any updates since then. I think there may have been some patches, I haven't checked that. But that's, I'd say, pretty long time where you're not seeing any changes. So I would imagine that there's not that much focus on it. And there's probably going to be a HANA Cloud or SAP Cloud version of this running that users would be able to access, and I think that's probably a better location for it, and hopefully they will get some consumption-based pricing, so you can start out small and doing reporting on some of your smaller processes, both PI and the workflows in the cloud. And then as you scale up and figure out how to monitor more processes with this tool, you'll be able to just pay for more users or more data, whatever the pricing would be of. But I think that would be an ideal way to leverage this. Then, so yeah, that would be one. And then we got the Celonis Process Miner, tool that SAP bought a couple of years ago. Also think that would be one of the relevant thing to look into. I don't think it has a BPM component, but I may be wrong. That will probably make a good podcast at some point in time. But for now, not sure on where this would make sense. That would be a way to get more information about what's really happening inside your PI system or ECC system, not the PI. I don't think that is as much relevant, and you can do as many things there as in the ECC system. I think that was the thing I wanted to cover in this podcast. I hope you like it. If you're watching this, please subscribe. It will, comment and please share it with your friends if you find this relevant, because I'm doing this just because I love sharing it with you guys and figure out all the different things that's happening. So please help me share this, share your comments, and that means a lot to me. Thank you.